Good evening and welcome to it. It is the OMU Podcast with your host, Ncedo Marele, of course. And yet again, we're back with another old man of Muir. But before we hit to the interview, I'd just like to remind you guys to please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please go over there on YouTube and subscribe to the channel and also like the content. The more you like the content, the better our chances of reaching other Muir boys from all over the world. And that's exactly what we want to do. We want to create an international connection. You can also have a conversation with us, or you can comment on our social media pages. But don't forget to follow our social media pages as well. We're on Facebook, Instagram, as well as on LinkedIn. So today we've got Matthew O'Reilly. So Matthew is from the younger generation, I presume, So it's nice to have a mixture of the older guys, the old guard, and then you have the younger guys to give sort of a different perspective of what they think of Muir College. Matthew, how are you, my man?
I am all well, and obviously, thank you for allowing me to be a guest on the podcast. It is a privilege.
All right, cool, man. All right, so we're going to jump right into it. And I think to start things off, I like to keep it a little easy for the guests to sort of
Okay, I appreciate it.
The more difficult questions. But when you think of school, right, when we went to school and, in the Saturday morning before a rugby game, you'd sort of smell the wet grass and that sort of,
Yeah.
that it's on, it's game
Yeah.
day. So when you think of Muir College, what is the first image, sound, or smell that comes to mind?
I think the cut grass and the fresh smelling grass is a great example.
Yeah.
It's a combination of things. I can hear the busy corridors of boys talking as they walk into class. I can hear teachers. I can remember teachers shouting and being nice or being funny. It was a combination of things. But I think for me, the thing that stands out the most is just that it was always a very lively environment.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it was something that was very oppressive or something that didn't, even though it's an all boys school and it's a school with a lot of history, it was still a place where we could be very expressive. And that's the thing that I remember the most is that just that chatter, that nonsense talking that would happen amongst boys, that stands out for me the most.
Cool. So in that sort of mold or in that sort of mold of a question, I'd like to know, is there a moment that you think captures the spirit of the school? I know you explained that this is what you smell, but what is that moment that captures the spirit of the school for you?
Maybe it's going to take all old boys back down memory lane,
Yeah.
but I want to say that first assembly
Yeah.
that you have. Whether it's my first assembly is grade 4, I can remember it so clearly, sitting on the floor in the front, Mr. Francis standing there, being his intimidating self, seeing the teachers come up onto the stage. It was such a new experience going into Muir from grade 3 to grade 4. So I think for me, that's something that stands out a lot. And then the other thing that I always think about when I think about Muir is Founders Weekend, and how we would look forward to that time as boys. You knew there was going to be an assembly. You knew that there was going to be a speaker, and it was just a celebration as well around Founders. It's something that also always stands out to me. I can remember Founders that were very exciting. I can remember Founders where it was so hot and you're sitting with your blazer on and you just want to take it off.
Yeah.
Those types of things are what stick with us.
Cool. Now, you mentioned Mr. Francis and him being intimidating. I think for most boys that were in school while Mr. Francis was still a teacher and the head of discipline, they can
Mm.
really resonate with what you're saying. And which leads me to my next question of who was the teacher or staff member who left the biggest mark on you and what made them so unforgettable?
There were lots of teachers in high school. I would actually say it was Mr. Francis in high school. He was my history teacher
Hmm.
and he was very passionate about that subject. But the reason why I learned a lot or found history to be such a useful subject is because you have to remember a lot.
Yeah.
And just the way that he taught and the way that we learned the subject, it helped me to kind of build a long term memory. I remember we would have to write essays in
Yeah.
history and I would write out the essay in practice and then I would memorize the entire essay. I would memorize the first paragraph, memorize the second paragraph, go back to paragraph one until I could say this whole 3 page thing like it was an oral.
Mm.
So that stands out for me a lot. I was I loved biology in school as well. We had a teacher, Mr. Ownhouse. He was a very inspirational teacher. He was very passionate about that subject. I think about people that have, passed on, like Mr. Stresso.
Mm.
Mr. Stresso was in my life from grade 4 until he moved on, and he was someone that he gave us PT classes when I was in school, but he was someone that was involved in the OMU and someone that he got me involved in the OMU from a young age as well, because it would be grade 4 or grade 5, it would be school holidays, and Mr. Stresser would actually come and pick me up at my home, take me to the school, and you'd make me fold all the OMU letters, put them into envelopes, we'd put stamps on them. It was very old-fashioned back then, the
Yeah.
way that things were done. But that involvement in Muir being more than just a school was also something that stood out for me. So they were every teacher has an impact on a student because they impact how a student feels about that subject. They also impact you going forward. I can remember all of my teachers. I can remember good things. I can remember bad things. That's life.
Cool. So, I want to capture the essence of, the vibe of the school in terms of life on
Mm,
campus, right? Which is like a big part of being in school, that's where you sort of have time to sit with your friends, gossip about the weekend or gossip about girls, because there were no girls around. The only girls that we could really
yep.
talk about is Reba girls, but we know those girls.
Yep.
But anyway, my daughter goes to Reba, so she's gonna she's gonna give me a hard time. But
Oh,
I want
shame.
you to paint me a picture of
Mm,
a typical break time on campus.
peanut butter sandwiches. Uh, you know, yeah, lunchtime or the lunch break was, I think it's every student's favorite part of the day,
Yeah.
because you've got these 2 breaks where there's no teachers. You can do what you want. You can be with your friends. And there's always, cliques, there's social groups, there's
Yeah.
different people that like different things and they hang out in different places on the campus. So for me, that typical lunch break was, just finding a place to hang out with my friends and had quite a big group of friends when I was in school. And it was just about, talking, making jokes, you know, hopefully not getting into fights, those types of things. But it was just about, simply put, it was that peanut butter sandwich. It was the same thing every single day, but it was always a good thing.
Cool. Now, your college is a very traditional school and, is
Mm,
very proud of the traditions that were, or sort of the foundations that were laid by the men that came before us. So,
mm.
what school tradition meant the most to you, that is still alive today?
Oh, that is a great question. And I think my answer would be respect for everyone, respect for our elders, respect for just people around you. And then also, I would say discipline would be another thing that rubbed off from me when I was in school. Because, like every other teenager, I was rebellious.
Mm.
But school was always a place where you had to look a certain way, you had to behave a certain way. There were expectations for you, whether you're playing sports or you're in a class taking a test. So that discipline, I think, helped me a lot later in life. And then also just that you learn to treat people with respect.
Yes.
And that's something that you don't see a lot around nowadays. It's not something that everyone does or everyone has. But I can proudly say that every Muir boy that I interact with and every old boy are extremely respectful people. They are kind, they are open-minded, and that for me is one of the best legacies of Muir is that we learn respect is instilled in us. And then, of course, the cherry on the top, nec pluribus impar, just being second to none, that mindset of we are second to none, we are the best. And I think taking that mindset into later parts of my life of having confidence in myself that I learned in high school
Mm.
or just in my years at Muir was very beneficial.
Cool. Now, let's move over to your life after school. And what sort of path did you take when you left Muir College after you matriculated?
When I matriculated in 2014, so 2015 was my first year in university, and I studied human resource management. I majored in industrial psychology. So that was 3 years of my life. And university is a very different experience from high school, especially a school like Muir, where it's very strict and very disciplined. When you go to university, it's like you go kind of crazy. So I had that crazy year in my first year. I grew out my hair, I grew a beard because I had to shave every day when I was in school, and I hated that. So, I haven't shaved since I left high school. A razor has not touched my face, and I hope it never does. I've shaved enough for a lifetime. So, yeah, it was just and I grew out my hair because we had, like hair inspections and those types of things. So I think everyone, when you leave Muir, goes through a bit of that rebellious phase. You want to kind of push the boundaries a little bit. And then, yeah, I mean, whatever pathway I took, it led me to where I am now. It put me in the position that I am now in within the Old Muirite Union. And I don't have any regrets about the pathway that I've taken. Of course, if I look back and I could change things, I would, but we all would.
Yeah.
Hindsight is 2020. We wish we could change things. There's no point in dwelling on the past. I think for me, the important thing is that I try and do my best every day. And into the future, I also try and do my best so that I can make my alma mater proud
Mm.
of
Mm.
me and then also everyone else, all the other boys. We also have the same type of mindset, I feel.
Cool. Now, let's delve into your involvement in the Old Muirite. As you did in the Old Muirite Union, sorry, you did mention that you became involved very early in your life with the OMU.
Yeah.
So, what sort of role are you playing now at the Old Muirite Union?
I like to think of myself as just someone that is there to help the entire union function. So my title is as an administrator. So there is a lot of admin, there's paperwork, there's emails, there's all of those types of things associated with it. But for me, the thing that stood the most out, and I mean, I've been in the position for, I think, 2 months now.
Mm.
The thing that stands out the most for me is the camaraderie and the brotherhood amongst old boys, because I've gotten to interact now with a large number of boys that have finished school many years ago. They finished school last year. So there's a very wide range of people that I've had to interact with, and each experience has been awesome. I've learned a lot about the history of Muir. I've learned a lot about the history of Uitenhage. I've learned a lot about what's going forward for Muir and what's going forward for the Old Muirite Union as well. So for me, I'm just my mantra is I'm here to help things progress in the right direction. And if I can help facilitate those correct changes and help facilitate things to happen in the way that they are dreamed to happen, because there are some very exciting dreams in the pipeline.
Yeah,
If I can assist those things take place, then I'll be a very happy person.
cool. Now, speaking about dreams in the pipeline, what are the new exciting projects that or new exciting events that the old boys can look forward to for 2026?
Oh, I don't know what I'm allowed to say
Yeah, I
and what
mean,
I'm
you're
not
the guy with
allowed
the
to
no.
say.
We want to break the news first. So maybe give us a
Well, at
glimpse without getting into trouble. Maybe a glimpse.
okay, a
Don't give us too much.
glimpse. So we've got the Old Muirite Union does get-togethers for old boys throughout the country. So that's something that I've been assisting with. We've got a get-together at the end of this month out in St. Francis for all boys based within the Kufa district and the Kufa area. So I
Mhm.
think that will be a very exciting experience. It will be my first time actually kind of outside of founders and going to sports occasions at Muir. It will be my first time kind of interacting with a lot of old boys. So get-togethers, there's lots of those types of things planned. There are many exciting plans for founders for the end of this year. And I think that this year's founders is going to be not a revolutionary experience, but it is going to be an experience that's very novel for a lot of old boys. It's going to be very still traditional and still the way that we expect it to be and we know it to be because that's comfortable.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it will be very modern. It will be a very unique experience. And we've got very exciting plans based around founders and all of the reunion classes that are celebrating this year. There are other plans as well in the pipeline that I
Mhm.
don't feel that I should speak about
No, no,
now,
no,
but
no, no.
these things
It's fine. You've given us enough. So,
but those types of things will, like you said earlier, keep your eye on our social
yeah,
media. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
something that we're really pouring a lot of love into at the moment. And I think if you follow the social media, you'll see some of these exciting projects that I've suggested towards.
Cool. So, last controversial question. Can you give us a hint of who the speaker or the guest speaker for the Founders Weekend is going to be for the OMU?
Mm,
A hint.
no, no, I can't give that. That's too good to know at the moment.
I think I'm going
So
to put
no,
up a poll. I think I'm going to make people guess who they think
okay.
is going to be the guest speaker for this year's Founders. Since you have all the information, but you don't want to share, but it's fine. Let's move right along. So going back to
I'm being so greedy with all the
you are
secrets.
being greedy with information. You've got all the information, you're hugging it. But anyway, so moving forward, back to your life at school. If
Mm,
you can look at boys in grade 12 today, what do you wish you had known
mm.
at their age?
Lots of things. I wish that and I think this is something that the OMU speaks about a lot is the matric boys, and 100% boys that are in school now are the future of the Old Muirite Union.
Yeah.
So they need as much care and support as possible. That I want to look even younger in terms of age or early in terms of grade nine, before they make that big decision of, I'm going to study certain subjects, because that can kind of box you in with terms of what you study later in life. So I would encourage everyone to, take pure maths, even if I hated maths in school. I was horrible at maths. I didn't do pure maths. But if I could go back in time and take that type of subject, I would have. So my message to the grade 12 boys now is to take ownership early. You can really have a big influence on your matric results if you work hard and you study hard.
Yeah.
That can influence a lot what's going forward for you in terms of university. So take ownership if you can, and also take advantage of the resources at Muir. Take advantage of your teachers. They are there to help you, to assist you, to help you become the strongest and best version of yourself. And I think that is my 2 cents for them.
Cool. So we're going to go into a fun, quick fire round. So this is you got
Okay.
10 seconds to answer. When 10 seconds is up, Then we move on to the next question.
Okay.
All right. So, what was your favorite snack at the tuck shop?
I never went to the tuck shop,
Oh, you never.
not even once.
Oh, you're the first person. Okay. Matt never went to the tuck
No,
shop.
never. Can't stand long lines. Hate queues.
Okay.
Even to this day, very passionate about it.
So, what was the most daring rule you ever bent or broke?
Oh, bunked lots of classes.
Bunking class. You don't look like a bunker.
Mm. You
Wow.
know what was very unique about my grade and the group of guys I were with? We would just all bunk together, all 30 of us. We had this like sworn rule that we would all bunk together
At the
and
same
none of
time.
us would.
I
Yeah,
mean,
we would all bunk together at the same time, go to the same place, do the same thing. But we all
that
had, there was like this code of honor that
yeah,
we
that
wouldn't
speaks
say
to
anything
the
to a
brotherhood.
teacher.
Yeah, speaks
Yeah,
a lot
yeah,
about brotherhood and the camaraderie amongst the
yeah.
ones that are breaking the rules. All right, so a sport or an activity you wish you had tried.
I wish I'd played cricket in school
Yeah.
because even though some people think it's a boring sport, but I find it to be a fascinating sport. And it's something that I only kind of fell in love with later in life. And I wish that I had played it because it just looks like a lot of fun.
All right, one song that instantly takes you back to school.
You know, the school, the school song,
Doesn't
number
it
one, I
doesn't
think
have to be a
everyone.
school song. It doesn't have to be a school song. I'm just saying,
Uh,
could be a disco song that you guys like to listen to at disco. I don't know.
oh gosh, and I've got a horrible memory for that type of thing. So I'm gonna say a school song and just Google whatever the top 10 hits were in 2014. That would help you.
All right. So last question for the quick fire round is three classmates you'd invite to a reunion dinner and why?
Could I invite my entire class to a
No,
reunion dinner?
choose top three.
Three people.
Three people. It doesn't mean that
I
you
would
don't like
pick,
everybody else. It's just
yeah,
the three.
I can feel my class, I can feel
No, it's
that
okay.
WhatsApp group, they're coming for me.
They'll get over it.
I would actually choose some people that I've lost touch with after school and people that are also they're not on our WhatsApp group, so we don't actually like they're a little bit untraceable at the moment. But one would be Conlon Barron. He was my best friend throughout school. So from grade four all the way to matric, him and I were inseparable. He was a very good guy. Uh, Dylan Martin was a friend of mine. He sat next to me in biology. I think he passed biology just because of the amount of help I gave him. And then one other person I would pick, can't actually remember his name because he went by a nickname. His nickname was Papas.
Top us.
And Papas was a hilarious guy. And actually, I remember in like junior school, he was more of bully towards me.
Yeah, yeah.
And somehow we just became friends. And he's also someone that I've lost contact with. And he went to university with me as well, so I'd see him around there a lot. Since then, I've lost complete touch with him. Bradley Tarantal, that is his name.
Bradley.
So
Bradley, if you're
Bradley,
watching,
Dylan, Colin,
yeah,
comment below.
comment on this. You can't comment actually, but you can go to the Facebook page and show
Go
yourself.
to the Facebook
Yeah,
page.
go to the Facebook page and
Yes,
show
yes,
yourself.
please.
All right, so we're reaching the final stage of our interview, and we've got two questions to ask you. And the first one
Mm.
is, what single lesson from school still guides you today?
Discipline beats motivation
Mm,
because you can be, and maybe this is something that's good for the students now and also just for people in their lives,
yeah.
but you can be motivated to study, you can be motivated to pass, you could be motivated to change your job and get a pay raise and all of those types of things. But if you do not show up every single day and even if you hate it, you just learn to love to do it.
Mm.
Even if you have to lie to yourself and trick yourself, I think discipline will always be, for me, that has always been the key to all of my successes. Just even if you don't understand, you just brute force it, you just smash it every
Mm.
single day. But that for me is so valuable because motivation only lasts for so long. You know, it's
True.
like motivation's the spark, discipline keeps the fire burning.
Because motivation also depends on your mood and your attitude and the atmosphere and your emotions. So there's a lot of things that go on to motivate you to do something. But with discipline, you can
Mm,
kind of keep the consistency of what's driving you.
absolutely.
It sort of reminds you of why you're doing things. So I like that one. All right. And my final question is, so let's imagine that or let's imagine the school rather, 200 years from now. What do
Wow.
you hope still remains? That would mean we'd be 400 and something years old now in 200.
Yeah, that's well, I get shivers when you ask me that question
Yeah, when
because
we
for me, I hope that the things that brought us to the 200 year, and obviously that's past now, that reunion,
mm,
but I hope that those things just continue into the future. That sense of brotherhood, that sense of camaraderie, the traditions of Muir, the standards that Muir has. I hope that those things continue into the future and better, that they improve even more. But mostly that sense of brotherhood, because when you matriculate and you finish school, you kind of forget that you had this brotherhood
mm.
because your class splits up and people go all over the country, all over the world. You lose contact with people and you kind of forget that you had this foundation of people that were with you for a very long period of your life.
Yeah,
And that brotherhood can be found again through the OMU. And that for me is the beautiful thing about the Old Muirite Union is that it can put us back into connection with that camaraderie and that brotherhood that we had and that we can still continue to have.
cool. All right, Matt, thank you very much for your time. Um, um,
Thank you so much.
we had a great chat, and I hope you have a good day at work when you eventually go to work.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure and it was a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for all of your lovely questions. And yeah, you're a fantastic host. It was great. This was a great experience.
Cool. Thank you, man.
Thank you so much.
All right, cheers, Matt. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Matthew O'Reilly over there, and he's in charge of the admin and organizing everything at the Old Muirite Union. So, thank you very much, Matthew, for all the efforts you're putting into the runnings of the Old Muirite Union, because it's a big organization, guys. It's a big organization. So if you want to be on this podcast, please send us a message on our social media pages. Just inbox us, and then Matthew will respond to you, and then we can get in touch and have a conversation right here on the OMU podcast. But before I go, I want to remind you guys, please like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. You will be able to find all of our episodes that we've done. You'll be able to also sort of understand what we're trying to do with the OMU podcast. Hopefully one day, very soon, we are going to have the guests live right here next to me. But that is news for another time. But for now, do not forget to also follow us on our social media pages. That is on Facebook, LinkedIn, as well as on Instagram. So from your host, Ncedo Marele, I'll see you guys again in the next 2 weeks. But for now, cheers.